So guys, with episode 3, Heresy, 3 major groups of weapons were added. You have the brand new seasonal weapons, the reprised Vault of Glass weapons, and then also 4 brand new weapons coming from the Sundered Doctrine dungeon. So today we're going to be going over all of those weapons so that you guys can know what you should be looking out for or spending your time farming for this episode. So let's jump first in with the Adamantite, the first ever strand damage type support frame auto rifle, and for that reason alone, definitely going to recommend you farm out for this weapon. Can get some very interesting perks in Slice and Tear, some very good options. For that one, you can also get Hatchling, but then you've also got Unrelenting as well, which is going to be very good on a support frame auto rifle. And you've also got things like Circle of Life and Reciprocity, which is also very, very good. So overall, definitely going to recommend you farm out a decent roll on this Adamantite auto rifle. Moving on from there, we then have Mirror Imago, which is a brand new Strand SMG. Now, personally, there are a whole load of better SMGs in that kinetic slot that you should probably already have access to or should probably be keeping an eye out for, because this one isn't really grabbing me really. Hatchling and Recycled Energy might be interesting. Sword Logic as well, pretty good on an SMG, but overall, there are so many SMGs in this game and you can probably do better than Mirror Imago. So for that reason, I am personally going to be skipping, but if you want a Strand SMG, this one probably has some decent rolls on it. Moving on from there, we then have Refusal of the Call. This is a Strand damage type glaive. For that alone, it's in your kinetic slot, so definitely worth going for. But if you're not a fan of glaives, you're not going to get this weapon, and if you are a fan of glaives, you probably already have it. So that's all I have to say on really on Refusal of the Call. Moving on from there, we then have, I have no idea how to say this weapon's name, Anamnesis. Definitely said that wrong, but either way, this is a brand new void damage type bow and can get the newly buffed destabilizing rounds trait, which is now very, very good, so you should definitely be going for that. Also, Demoralize, another brand new void trait where precision final blows cause nearby targets to become weakened. Very good option and can get Dragonfly as well in that first column. So overall, if you're a fan of bows and need a good void weapon, this one is going to be the one to go for. Moving on, we then have Afterlight, a brand new void adaptive frame fusion rifle. This one can also get the newly buffed destabilizing rounds and can also get Reservoir Burst. So I'm going to definitely recommend this weapon. Can also get Lead from Gold as well, which is very, very good, and is also Ambitious Assassin for that overflowed magazine. Overall, very good perks here and would recommend you go for it. Next up though, we have probably the weapon that most of you are going to be going for, that is Psychopomp, the brand new Arc Area Denial Frame Grenade Launcher. This thing can get one of my favourite perks in the game now, being Rolling Storm, giving you Bolt Charge whenever you get a kill, and while amplified, you gain more Bolt Charge. Bolt Charge, if you don't know, I made a separate video completely going over everything you need to know about it, and it is such a good ability that you should definitely be taking advantage of on any weapon that has Rolling Storm. So definitely going to recommend you go for this thing. Can also get Envious Arsenal as well for that free reload, and also Ambitious Assassin for the increased magazine size. So overall, definitely a good weapon and one you should be going after. After that, then we then have Division, which is an arc heavy burst sidearm. This thing isn't a rocket frame sidearm, so I'm personally not interested at all, but it's an arc weapon that can get Volt Shot, so if you need one of those, this thing might not be too terrible. Moving on from there though, we then have Eyes Unveiled, a brand new Void Precision Frame Linear Fusion Rifle, and for me personally, I'm not going to be going for this thing, because I already have very good legendary fusion rifle options, and Queenbreaker's bow is currently taking the cake for the best damage linear fusion rifle in the game, so it should be more focused on getting that catalyst than I would say this linear fusion. But if you were to go for a roll, something like triple tap Withering Gaze or triple tap Reservoir Burst might not be a bad option for you. Also, Ambitious Assassin Reservoir Burst or even Overflow Reservoir Burst as well might be pretty decent. After that, then we then have Watchful Eye, a brand new aggressive frame arc machine gun. This thing, pretty decent, can get Killing Tally, also Rolling Storm again, and Jolting Feedback. Some pretty good options there. And you've also got things like Overflow and Fill Prep there for that increased reserves and magazine size. So overall, definitely worth going for. And for the final seasonal weapon, we then have Abyssal Edge. This is a new strand damage type sword. And overall, I'm not really a fan of swords unless they have Eager Edge, so I'm not personally going for this thing, but if you see any perks here that you might be interested, if you're a sword user or sword enjoyer, probably going to be worth going for, or at least keeping an eye out for a decent roll. That's all the seasonal weapons. Now let's move over to the reprised Vault of Glass weapons here, starting off with Fatebringer. This thing, probably going to be a weapon that most of you are going to want to go for, because it's a hand cannon in the kinetic slot, and can get things like Kinetic Tremors, Firefly, Magnificent Howl, Precision Instrument, Explosive, Rewind rounds. Very good options here, so you're probably going to go for it. Next up, Praedyth's Revenge. This thing, with the brand new origin trait that all these Vault of Glass weapons get, going to be very, very good one to go for, because it can get Envious Arsenal, Bait and Switch, also Rewind rounds in that first column alongside Kinetic Tremors 4th times the charm. You've even got a precision instrument on this thing. This thing has everything. Now, I do not know if it's better than Supremacy, so if you already have one of those crafted, you might not need to go for this thing, but if you're playing through Vault of Glass, you might as well be keeping an eye out for any good rolls you find on this weapon. Next up though, for all my Solar subclass enjoyers and for all my Scout Rifle enjoyers, Vision of Confluence is here, and it can get Incandescent and Firefly. That's the only perks you really need to be looking out for, because the only other weapon that can get that trait combination, I believe, is the Salvation's Edge Pulse Rifle, and that thing absolutely cooks. And from experience, I can say that Vision of Confluence with that combination does me very, very good. So definitely going to be worth going for. Next up then, we don't have Found Verdict and Arc Shotgun. This thing can get Volt Shot, but for my PvP enjoyers, can get things like Slide Shot, Opening Shot. So if you're in need of that, definitely going to be worth going for. Finally then, for the heavy weapons, we then have Corrective Measure. This thing, very good options for it. Can get the newly buffed Destabilizing Rounds and Demoralize, so that's going to be a great combo. Firefly Demoralize, also going to be very, very good. And you've also got things like Rewind Rounds and Killing Tally, which is going to be another great one there for you. Moving on to the final weapon then for Vault of Glass, we have Hezen's Vengeance. Very easy yes to this weapon. Envious Arsenal bait and switch, very good options, but paired with the brand new Time Lost Magazine Origin trait, throw on Bipod, throw on Overflow, and you can get up to like 8 rounds in a magazine on a rocket launcher, which is absolutely insane. So definitely going to be worth going for there. And then to end off today's video, let's talk about the 4 brand new dungeon weapons from the Sundered Doctrine. This being first Unsworn, the brand new strand damage type trace rifle. Now, me personally, I'm not a fan of trace rifles because they use special ammo, and I'd rather have something else in my special ammo weapon slot. But if you're a fan of it, this thing can get bait and switch, also Killing Tally, and also a brand new trait in the form of Detonator Beam, where dealing sustained damage creates an explosion around the target. So pretty good. One other thing to note is that the origin trait on all of these weapons is probably the best origin trait in the entire game. That being that the weapons adapt to targets when dealing damage. So to weak targets, shots explode. To strong targets, targets become exhausted. And to guardians, these weapons' flinch resistance is increased. So you basically have built-in explosive rounds on a trace rifle, which might be very, very good when going against like red bar enemies and stuff. Yeah, if you're interested, go get an Unsworn. If you're not though, keep an eye out for some of these other weapons because they are pretty juiced. For example, Unworthy might be just the best scout rifle in the entire game in my opinion, simply because it can get things like Firefly in that first column and also Rolling Storm. If you don't know already, Rolling Storm, such a good perk. Really, really love it. But can also get things like Volt Shot, so Firefly Volt Shot, going to be a good option there. Rewind rounds as well in that first column, and also Rapid Hit as well, paired with Subjugation, that origin trait. Very good weapon. Highly recommend you pick this one up if you're a fan of scout rifles. Moving on though, let's talk Unloved. This is the brand new Heavy Burst Strand Hand Cannon. If you're a hand cannon enjoyer and a Heavy Burst hand cannon enjoyer, this one's going to be pretty good. You've got Dragonfly on this thing, also Kill Clip, Tear, Elemental Honing, I've heard is pretty darn decent, and also Rapid Hit and Hatchling as well. So pretty decent perks overall. And then finally, let's go and talk about Unvoiced, the brand new Pinpoint Slug Frame Shotgun. This thing, pretty darn juiced in the fact that it can get 4 times the charm or Envious Arsenal in that first column, paired with bait and switch. Going to be having a great time there. Can also get demoralized and destabilizing rounds if you're looking for a more clear version of the weapon. And once again, Subjugation, such good origin trait, so definitely worth keeping an eye out for any of these great rolls. And yeah, that is everything for this video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you want to look at these weapons in more detail for yourself, I'll have a link down to D2 Foundry in the description. But with that said, that is it for today's video. So if you guys have enjoyed, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, I would very much appreciate it. With that all said, I'll catch you guys in the next one.